Okay, is Bedlam coming back? Do we have Bedlam back in football? Switching gears to football here. I think any reasonable college sports fan would want Bedlam to come back, and it's in the headlines that there is a path to making this happen. All right. This is one of the great tragedies of conference realignment that we lost the annual Bedlam game. Insert jokes. I can hear Oklahoma fans now like, oh, is it really that? We beat them every year, whatever. Well, not the last one. Okay, first of all. But second of all, it's a great game no matter what. And it's just, it's the pure bitter hatred between two fan bases. Game that's been played forever. One of these things that historically just like it needs to happen. College sports is undeniably worse off for not having Bedlam every single year. One of the dumbest things that we do with this sport through conference realignment is break up rivalries like this. We did it to Texas A&M and Texas for a while. Now that obviously is coming back now that Texas is in the SEC. But, Pitt, West Virginia, again, has come back now, but we were missing it for a while, that's a very dumb thing to not be playing that every year. Kansas, Missouri. Yes, even football talking about that. Like, yeah, we should be having that every year. It's a ridiculous part of the sport. The conference realignment robs us of these things. That the suits, the folks making all the decisions for TV, for Fox and ESPN, they have helped rob us of these things. The greed of the university presidents, which translates into greed of Greg Sankey, greed of Tony Petitti. Even, you want to take it back to Kevin Warren in the Big Ten as well. All those guys take stuff like this away from us. But Mike Gundy thinks he has a solution to bring it back. And you know what? When there's a microphone in front of Mike Gundy and he's going to speak, I would generally advise that you listen. It's typically pretty entertaining, and you don't always know what's going to come out of his mouth. So it's a pretty good combo. Mike Gundy wants to bring Bedlam back, but only in one particular circumstance, at least as of right now. So here's what Gundy said. Quote, that's something we've talked about, Gundy said, of practicing or scrimmaging against another team in the spring. Quote, I think it's a great idea. Honestly, for us, we should do a home and home with Oklahoma in the spring. They should come here on the 19th. I think theirs is earlier in the year. We should go down there and play a home and home against each other in the spring. Charge $25 a head. He's got this all figured out. Charge $25 a head, and they can use it for NIL. We can use it for NIL. If they don't want to do two in the spring, we can do one here this year, do it there next year, and split the gate because we get tired of practicing against each other. It is so fascinating to me, first of all, how divergent the opinions are between coaches right now in spring games, because most coaches now seem to be pivoting totally away from them. I'm close to the K-State program and seeing that all the time. And Chris Kleiman was a very early adopter on getting away from spring games. That was a point of contention early on in his tenure at K-State. Lots of coaches now seem to be falling in line with that. And then you've got Coach Prime, right? You got Dion out here saying, hey, get us an opponent. Let's play somebody. Let's put it on TV. Let's do something with this. And even Mike Gundy falling in line now, who, demeanor, philosophically, you might not think there's a lot in common between Dion and Mike Gundy, but there is at least here. And he is being fearless about this and saying, let's go play OU. Dion, as I mentioned, has been trying to do this, and it sounds like he might get Syracuse too. But what would you rather watch in some sort of spring football game? Would you rather watch Oklahoma State and Oklahoma, or would you rather watch Colorado and Syracuse? Now, I'd watch them both. I think a lot of us would. If you're watching this channel, you're probably into it enough that you would watch both. But that's a good way to get the casuals in your fan base to really care. If you're going to play some sort of spring game against Oklahoma when that game doesn't exist anymore. But there are a couple things here with this. My question would be is this something we should want? Is this something that would be good? Undoubtedly good. Yeah, there is a part of me that feels I want Bedlam very badly, but this feels a little like getting a McDonald's or just a regular tiny cheeseburger when I wanted a steak. like, yeah, I guess like technically kind of the same thing. You are getting the meat, but yeah, it's hollow compared to what I actually wanted. It's a shell of what I actually wanted. Some of it would depend too on the quality of the game, I suppose, and that's where, I just feel like to Oklahoma State it would mean so much more. Like that's maybe another thing for Gundy. Like, hey, we'd probably win the damn thing more because it's going to mean more to our players than it is to guys that are at Oklahoma, especially now that they're in the SEC and we are out of sight, out of mind here. Our guys are going to be fired up to go play them. SEC team, Oklahoma, even if I'm a transfer that's not associated with the rivalry, that's an SEC team. We are not one of those. So I'm going to be up for this game. I'm going to be up for playing this. That's why, like, I think it's pretty doubtful that you would see Oklahoma actually give in and agree to doing this. Because for them, it's like, why? I mean, the only thing that can happen here is we'll lose to you and maybe lose some of our perceived, just vice grip on this rivalry, and we can just be done with it. We're in the SEC now. We don't have to do anything with that. I wouldn't think that's something that Oklahoma would really want to do. I think it would mean a lot more to Gundy and company and his players and the Oklahoma State fans and all that. And you'd be walking into a buzzsaw at Boone Pickens. I mean, it would be fascinating. I'm listening to myself say this and thinking about it in my head. Like, what does that stadium look like, for a spring game Bedlam? How does that atmosphere play out? What does the game feel like? And then if you got guys going really, really hard and they're playing against another team instead of just themselves, how much injury risk is there? How much risk are you putting your roster through in doing that? It's one thing to just be scrimmaging against yourselves. It's quite another to bring in another team that's going to up the intensity level just naturally from what it is when you're practicing each other. And then what if it's your bitter arch rival who you lost the rivalry game with because they had to go ditch you in a more profitable conference? All right, well, now you're talking about one side that's probably going to be a little more fired up, playing really hard. You're going to be risking some injury there. And it could, what? I thought of this too, like in terms of like what coaches are paranoid, I think, generally, and they think about all these things, like paranoid in a good way almost. Like it helps them. It behooves them to be that. But coaches are obviously going to be thinking about injuries. And then what does this do to fan expectations? This is I will tell you a story. And this is back in the days of just scrimmaging against yourselves. But L. Roberson, who turned into a great K-State quarterback, had a really rocky start to his career. And I know Bill Snyder would tell you that worst thing that ever happened to him is he ripped off like an 80-yard touchdown run in a spring game the first time he ever touched the ball in a K-State uniform when expectations were already high for him. And people thought he was the next Michael Bishop. And then he struggled to meet those expectations, had too big of a head, screwed everything all up because of what happened in the spring game. Now take that as like you do that against Oklahoma, who might be a shell of what it turns out to be during the season because they're just getting used to a new roster and portal. And every year there could be so much fluctuation with that. One team may be way less equipped to be ready to go at that point in the year because they have so many more portal entries to work into their, there's so many variables with that. And if you go out there and look terrible or you go out there and look great, that can do one thing or the other to how your fans feel about you. And it could affect you in a negative light. So paranoid coaches, I would imagine, would be thinking about that, man. That's something I'm thinking about, at least. That's something I'm thinking about. But I mean, the bottom line for me is, I guess I did say, yeah, does it feel like it would just make me like crave the steak and be like, man, this burger's fine. I guess like I'm going to survive, but I'm craving the steak now. I want that. I want the steak. Get me to the steakhouse. Make no mistake about it. I would watch this. Yes, I would watch the hell out of this, of course. If you put it on TV, I will definitely watch it, Mike Gundy, if you can make it happen. But I have my doubts that Oklahoma is going to do it, and I just have my doubts that this type of thing would be something that would catch on anyway. But I'm all for exploring different ideas. Mike Gundy now seems to be about as creative as anybody in how to facilitate NIL after, for a while, I think the Oklahoma State fan complaint was that he was not embracing it enough. Now he's the guy trying to put QR codes on helmets and trying to go play Oklahoma in an exhibition spring game. just to be able to generate some NIL money. Nick